Hello everyone. This is the 6th video in a series of videos going over how to program using the Arduino. In this video, we are going to learn about debugging our code. That is, how to find and correct errors in our code. There are generally speaking two different types of errors we might have in our code: syntax errors and logical errors. In this video, we will be going over syntax errors, and I will leave logical errors for the next video. So, what is a syntax error? Remember that a programming language is very much like the English language, and just as the English language has grammar, programming languages have syntax. When an English sentence has a grammatical error, that sentence usually doesn't make any sense to us. Likewise, when a program has a syntax error, the program does not make any sense to the computer. Luckily, when our programs do have syntax errors, we will get error messages that are meant to help us find those errors. So let's go ahead and look at an example. So what I have here is I've written up a script, and the purpose of the script is it's going to be controlling 3 LED lights, one red, one green, and one blue. And it's going to make the red light turn on, and then right as the red light turns off, it's going to turn on the green light. And then right as the green light turns off, it's going to turn on the blue light, and then it's going to keep repeating that pattern. And each time it does that, the amount of time each light stays on is going to decrease. So it's going to be blinking faster and faster until it gets all the way to 0. And then once it gets to 0, it's going to reset up to some higher number, and it's just going to continue that pattern forever. And here you can see, just to give you an idea of what this is supposed to look like, I've got this here for you to look at. So let's go ahead and look at the code. I've already written the code, but unfortunately it's filled with several syntax errors. And so what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and try and pause the video and look over this section of the code right here and see if you can spot any syntax errors. Okay, and now finally I'm going to scroll down to the second half of the code. And again, go ahead and pause the video and see if you can spot any syntax errors and try and correct those syntax errors. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and try and verify or compile our code. And when we do that, we should get some kind of error message. Okay, so we've gotten an error message. It did not compile correctly. So what I'm going to do actually first is I'm just going to make this error message very large so we can see all of it. And we can actually see that there's quite a bit here. So this is actually listing all of the error messages. But what it does is that whichever error message is first in your script from top to bottom, that's the one that's going to show first. And you can see up here that it's actually highlighted the line where it's found the error in red. So looking at this line here, line 8, we can see that there's some error. And it says green LED pin does not name a type. So when we look at this line, when we look at this here, we're declaring a variable. And it looks like what we're missing here is we're missing the variable type. We're not telling the Arduino what type of variable this is. See, we've got that the red LED pin, that's an integer variable. The blue LED pin, that is also an integer variable. So we need to tell it that this too is an integer variable. And again, we'll go ahead and try and verify again. And again, we got another error. So here we see line 15 is highlighted red. It says red LED pin was not declared. Whenever it says that, whenever it says, something was not declared, it's saying you've told me a word that I don't understand. It's saying red LED pin it's not in my vocabulary. But it's confusing because we did define red LED pin, right? So we have to look really, really closely and see that here, when we declare the variable red LED pin, this L and P are capitalized. We can see down here we forgot that. So you have to be very careful when you declare your variables that you're always typing them out the way that you declared them. So that should be fixed. So let's go ahead and verify again. Okay, so again we've gotten an error. So here on line 18, and this is a little bit confusing because on line 18 there's nothing. There's just this little curly bracket. But let's go ahead and look at the error message. let's see, it says it expected a semicolon before the curly bracket. So if we look before this curly bracket and go back up to line 17, we're seeing that we missed our semicolon right here at the end of pin mode. So remember that semicolons are kind of like periods. They have to end most statements with a semicolon. All right, so let's look at the next error. Let's see, expected semicolon before digital write. So okay, so this is the same thing. On line 25, we've got this digital write here, and before it, they're expecting a semicolon. And when we look at the line above it, line 24, again, we see that we're missing that semicolon. Okay? All right, so our next error is actually again on line 25, saying digital write was not declared in the scope. So again, this means that we're giving the Arduino a word that is not in its vocabulary. And so when we look at this function digital write, we can actually see that it's a little bit different than these other digital writes, how they popped up orange. And that's because, again, we were not very careful, or I was not very careful, when writing out this function name. So it has to be, it's case sensitive, it has to be the exact same case as is seen here, otherwise it doesn't know what that word means. All right, we're all the way at the bottom. So right at the end here, it's saying it expected a curly bracket at the end of an input, at the end of input, which is kind of confusing because we have a curly bracket here. But one thing that you're noticing is that when I click here right next to this curly bracket, this other curly bracket right here for the if statement pops up. And what that means is that this curly bracket, this closing curly bracket, goes with this opening curly bracket. But right up here at void loop, we have an open curly bracket, and we don't have a closed curly bracket that goes with it. So what we need to do is we need to add another curly bracket. And actually now you can see up here, it's telling you, hey, this void loop up here, that's the curly bracket that this one goes to. All right, so now if we go ahead and verify, I think all of the syntax errors are gone. Okay, so the code has finished compiling and all of the syntax errors are gone. Now, unfortunately, as we can see here by looking at my setup here, even though all of the syntax errors are gone, something's still not quite right. The program is not running as intended. And the reason that it's not running as intended is because there's still several logical errors in my code. So logical errors in the code are when all the syntax error is right, but what you are telling the program to do is actually not quite what you want it to do. So it's important to remember that whenever you tell the Arduino to do something, it's going to do exactly what you say. Now that's not to say that it's always going to do exactly what you want. So logical errors are trying to rewrite your code a little bit so that instead of the code, or it's to rewrite the code so that it actually does what you want, just not just what you say. So in the next video, we're going to actually go through and fix all the logical errors in this code. So this has been the 6th video in a series of videos going over how to program using the Arduino. I hope you found this video useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.